This is the Israel of the newsreels. This is the image the world has of Israel, or wants to have. This image is deceptive. Who is to blame for it? I do not know. I only know it is better to show Israel as it really is. My name is Kobi Jaeger. I was born in Israel and I am at home in Jerusalem. I will try to show you my country as I see it. Israel is a state just like any other state. We have no more and no fewer heroes than in any national zoo. 2.5 million Israelis lead the same everyday life with the same everyday worries as people everywhere in the world. There is nothing special about them. They worry about income tax, they dream of the weekend, and of a salary increase. But what is it that is special about Israel? Israel is a melting pot. Here, at the central bus station in Tel Aviv, the striking contrast between the many different worlds and diverse cultures that come together and sometimes collide in our country are especially and particularly noticeable.
Mit welchem Wagen kann ich fahren? Schließenkopf, 132.
רגע, גברת. Which place?
Ort, school.
איפה? ברחוב החתם.
ובפור direkt da Omnibus dort, 12:45, אחת ברבע.
כן.
Dass man weiß, was ist das, was ist jenes.
Ja. שלום. סלמה, איזה מין מכונה?
המלך ג'ורג'.
רחוב המלך ג'ורג'.
מספר 14.
כן.
אוטובוס 4. את לא תספיק לי.
לא אספיק. זה הם סוגרים באחת?
איפה? ביפו? מה, 85?
מתי יש?
יש רק בבוקר, עד 7:30 בבוקר.
ואחר כך תיקח אוטו 19.
צריפין שער ירושלים.
All these people are citizens of one country. They have the same passport, they sing the same national anthem. They elect their government together. Before our law, they are all equal. To the outside world, Israel is a unified whole, but it has many faces. There is the Israel of the pioneers, the founders, and all those who were born in Israel, like me. And there is a second Israel, the Israel of the new immigrants. Between the two, there is a deep chasm. Why? Today a ship arrives in Haifa. The dream of all immigrants is coming true for these people. The new homeland awaits them. More than 1 million people came to our country after the state was founded, just like them, each of them burdened with the tradition, the language, the customs, and prejudices of their country of origin. Israel must absorb them, must create work for them and space to live. Only yesterday, they stood expectantly on the deck of the immigrant ship. Today, they are already on their way to their home, to their village. Life in their new homeland is beginning. And with it, the hardest problem, integration, assimilation. It is a problem. For many years, it was believed that integration could be accelerated by mixing the most diverse groups of immigrants immediately after their arrival. But the farmer from Romania found no common language with the farmer from Algeria. Accelerated integration proved itself to be unfeasible. Precious years were being wasted. These Indian children from Koshan are no longer being integrated in an accelerated way. The newcomers are now settled together in a village according to their ethnic origin. This makes settling in easier. The children spend their kindergarten years and the first years of school in this village. Only later, once they have fully settled into their new home, do they meet with children from other ethnic groups. Here, in district schools like this one, time is working for integration for the Israel of tomorrow. The children sitting here at their school desks know almost nothing of their old homeland anymore. They are without resentment, without prejudice. their parents have it harder. For them, integration is not a leisurely process of maturing between school desk and slate. For them, it is a necessity of life. People who have often spent half their lives elsewhere must adapt from one day to the next. Usually, they have to change their profession. And above all, a new language must be learned. Hebrew is the national language. The future existence of every newcomer depends on mastering it. Here, in an ulpan, as we call our schools for immigrants, the basic foundations of Hebrew are taught.
עכשיו בבקשה חברים, אני רוצה להגיד אותיות ואתם צריכים לקרוא מה שאני אומר. היי, אסור לכתוב. היי, בית, היי. היי, בית, היי. הווה, הווה. נון גימל יוד למד היי שלי. נגילה, נגילה. א' ו' למד פי נון. א' ו' למד פי נון.
Most of them come from Western countries. For them, Israel is an adventure. They study the exotic language. I asked some of them, do you want to return to Israel later on?
Yes, I'd like to. I'd like to come back here for a visit. I can't say that I'd want to live here, but I would like to come back for a visit. I like it here.
And you?
Yes, I feel the same way. We've made friends here. I'd like to come back again in a few years. I want to see how the country develops.
You don't want to stay here forever?
No?
I think it's hard for an American to settle in here. Everything here is so different from the States. We grew up in such a completely different environment.
I'm returning to the States to study theology. I believe that a careful study of Hebrew and a thorough knowledge of the sources was absolutely necessary beforehand. That's why I came to Israel.
This Israeli comes from Morocco. He's not here on a visit. He's one of those who are staying here for good. I looked for answers that are generally valid for all immigrants to my questions. Where do you come from and why did you come?
I come from Belgium. I used to cut diamonds there. Here in Israel, I do the same thing. Egypt, what choice did I have?
From Morocco, a Jew. Now I'm here.
I come from Persia.
I came from Poland. We've been through so much.
They let me leave Bulgaria.
You made so much propaganda, now I'm here.
Ask the others. I've been here for 35 years.
From Yemen with my parents.
Greece, a dock worker.
From Germany. My parents died in a concentration camp. This is my home.
From India, that's been our dream for hundreds of years. And here we are?
From Libya. I couldn't stand the Arabs.
I'm glad I'm out of Yugoslavia. From Hungary, after the revolution in 1956.
I was lucky. They led me out of Russia.
Everyone came from Iraq, me too.
This is Tel Aviv, as it's not seen on postcards. Israelis of Oriental origin live here. They feel disadvantaged. A few years ago, a rebellion broke out in such a neighborhood. Hundreds of Moroccans, Iraqis, and Algerians gathered in a district of Haifa and marched toward the city center. Cars were overturned, shop windows and stores demolished, new flags hoisted, and when the police intervened, there were serious clashes. It was a demonstration of hatred and despair. Half of Israel's population declared their solidarity with the protesters. Namely, that half that comes from Middle Eastern countries and has felt disadvantaged for years. People like these live on the margins of Israel's affluent society. With street vending, people in our country eke out a bare existence. For all of them, access to Israel's affluent society will remain closed for the foreseeable future. Two worlds collide in Israel, Europeans and Middle Easterners. They meet today in our country after centuries of separate development. The high number of illiterates among the new Middle Eastern immigrants further deepens this rift. Added to this are the usual prejudices. Europeans despise Middle Easterners for their low cultural level, and Middle Easterners loathe Europeans for their social dominance. And so the vicious circle closes. To say Middle Eastern is to mean anti-social. I have interviewed people across the country. Do you feel disadvantaged as a Middle Easterner in our state?
Well, yes, definitely. A few things have happened to me in that regard, and that's just how it is.
No.
Not so much for me. I was born here. But my parents, they have it harder.
Yes. Sometimes.
No, not me.
Disadvantaged? Of course I feel it. But I don't let it bother me.
I don't talk about that. Oh, I definitely notice it. Really, I do. And how?
Me? Yes, that's true, unfortunately.
Yes, of course, we notice it. But it won't go on like this for much longer.
Higher schools are closed to these Middle Eastern children. Their parents are too poor. What will become of them? Will they ever get out of this environment? Today, like their parents, they are on a dead-end track. An editor of our largest weekly magazine, Shalom Cohen, who has been campaigning for years in his articles for a change to this untenable situation, told me, above all, we must enable that child who has 10 siblings to attend school. This child in particular needs more school hours. They must be able to stay in school longer. They must be nurtured and educated there. They must even get better food at school because they don't get enough at home. And later, after elementary school, they especially must be enabled to attend high school because their parents cannot afford the school fees. The state must grant large Middle Eastern families not just equal rights, but privileges. Only in this way will it be possible to make them equal fellow citizens. These two are citizens of our young state. They provide the most dangerous explosive, the conflict between state and religion. It is the fundamental clash of two mutually incompatible views on life. The religious see Israel as a state that should be based exclusively on the basic law of Judaism. They want a theocracy. The others, however, demand the absolute separation of religion and state. This is Mea Sheharim, a district of Jerusalem. This district is the center of all radicals, all extremists in Jerusalem. The religious center of these people. The religious parties represent only just under 20% of our population, but on the political stage, as coalition partners, they are the tip of the scales. Since the ruling party cannot manage without them, their power grows from year to year. The most important ministries are already in their hands: the Ministry of the Interior and the Ministry of Social Affairs. The chief rabbinate in Jerusalem symbolizes this power. I asked the Minister of Social Affairs, Dr. Berg, whether in a state where the majority of the population is not religious, a religious minority may determine the general way of life. In Israel, for example, there is no civil marriage ceremony.
We are of the opinion that marriages between Jews should be concluded on a religious basis. The Jewish home and the tradition of Jewish marriage has, under all political conditions for 2,000 years across the whole world, preserved our people, our nation. In our opinion, and I want to stress that this is both my personal opinion and also the opinion of my national religious friends, The State of Israel was certainly not founded in order to annul religious tradition, God forbid, or to erase it from our future history.
Daughter of Israel, the Torah obliges you to dress modestly. We will not tolerate any violation of this law. This religious poster bears witness to a 2,000-year-old tradition that stands in stark contrast to today's reality. A new generation is growing up in Israel under completely new conditions. I expressed to Dr. Berg the assumption that these new conditions will inevitably also lead to new forms of life that will fundamentally be directed against the forms of life that still originated in exile.
If that is a conjecture, then it is your conjecture. And whatever I can do to prevent it from becoming so, I will do. I am of the opinion that the State of Israel as such must have a specific cultural religious significance for Jews throughout the world. And that is why cultural and religious assets, religious traditional heritage must be preserved in this state. If, according to your prognosis, and I hope it is a false prognosis based on a false diagnosis, but if, according to your prognosis, for example, as you might see in some cases, a part of the youth, perhaps even a significant portion, turns away from religious tradition, then the result will be that they also lose the cultural connection with religious Jews all over the world. And then we will only have another small microstate here, and not a magnificent microstate as we want to have it.
So much for the statement of the official spokesperson of the religious parties. Do these people strolling here on the Dizengoff, the Kudam of Tel Aviv, also have this sense of mission? People like these represent the majority of Israel's population. They do not share this religious enthusiasm. For them, our state is a state like any other. The faith that had given our ancestors so much courage, the sense of mission of God's chosen people, the idea of an Israeli state as a source of light for the whole world, all of this is deeply alien to these people. They care as little about religious questions as they do about the problems of integration and the declassification of our Oriental fellow citizens, which are so vital to us. They want to live well, nothing else. These are the citizens of today's Israel, not the heroes fed by supernatural sources who are so typical of the cliché image of propaganda. And what about the most widespread cliché image of Israel, the kibbutz? These young people are the founders of such a kibbutz. They eat together, they live together, they work together. Everyone gives as much as they can and receives as much as they need. They know no personal property. Everything belongs to everyone. This is Yotvata, a kibbutz in the Negev desert. 10 years ago, 80 young people settled here. They came from the cities and were prepared for this task in a youth movement. Today, this piece of desert is fertile land. These children were born here, this is where they grow up. To them, the kibbutz is the most natural thing in the world. One day, they will continue the work their parents started. But today, only 4% of our population still finds a collective way of life appealing. Kibbutzim are founded only by people who have voluntarily committed to a communal way of life. But practiced Marxism is no longer popular in Israel today. I asked one of the founders of this kibbutz. Fewer kibbutzim are being founded from year to year. The kibbutz has become a marginal phenomenon of Israeli reality. How do you explain this downward trend?
This phenomenon is very complex, but I can explain it with a simple buzzword: Americanization. That's going to cost us dearly one day.
נותנים לאנשים לעשות יותר באופן אינדיבידואלי, כרצונם, ולא מעמידים דוחקים אנשים.
In a kibbutz where the third generation is already growing up, I asked these young people, how they want to revive the kibbutz movement, which is in its final throes. Their answer? The kibbutz movement is not dying. Today, we make it easier for newcomers to settle in. Our ideology is no longer as orthodox as it used to be. The current crisis is a temporary phenomenon. Against the claim that the kibbutz is dead, we say, long live the kibbutz. Is this crisis really just a temporary phenomenon? I wish I could share this optimism. Industrial progress inevitably leads the kibbutz idea to absurdity. Here's an example. In the Jordan Valley lies one of the oldest and wealthiest kibbutzim, Afikim. Afikim owns the largest plywood factory in the country. The head of the kibbutz told me,
over time, the factory has evolved into what it is today. It was started almost exclusively with our own labor. And not only that, it's not just a question of labor. Of course, all the earnings as far as they existed were reinvested. And since it was necessary to develop large enterprises or larger companies at a certain time, we just went along with it. And over time, we reached the point where we had to employ more and more outside workers.
Afikim is an example of how no kibbutz can escape general development in the long run. Where years ago collective labor was everything, today hundreds of wage earners are employed. Here, near the Dead Sea, a new path is being taken. 1.5 years ago, 9 young people came here, to Neot Hakikar, and founded a farm. Neot Hakikar is at the end of the world. No roads, no electricity. The nearest town is 200 kilometers away. The average temperature is 40 degrees. For thousands of years, this soil has lain fallow. Its high salt content makes it infertile. You must wash out the salt to cultivate it, but that means water. And water at 40 degrees in the shade means initiative. The young people had initiative. After 4 months, they struck water, and a year later, they harvested the first tomato field. The experiment was a success. It succeeded without any ideological objective. The government would have preferred to see a kibbutz here. But these young people didn't want to save the old. They wanted to create something new. Neot Hakikar is a joint stock company. Every member owns the same number of shares. They must be earned on this farm and can only be sold back to the company. I spoke with the founder of Neot Hakikar and asked him what the special appeal of this new form of settlement is.
I think people come first because they want to start something new. Second, because they find direct contact with those who are already here. We don't force a particular worldview on anyone. With us, everyone can find happiness in their own way.
And you come from a kibbutz?
Yes, from a kibbutz.
Do you believe your farm represents an alternative to the kibbutz?
I'm convinced of it. A lot of people have reached out to us. We know that many, the best of our youth, are eager to do pioneering work. But they definitely don't want to be tied down ideologically.
Arad is another form of an alternative. This experiment was also undertaken near the Dead Sea. A city is emerging in the desert. The mayor told me about this project.
Arad is a new city in the desert, which in 10 years is supposed to have a population of 50,000 people. Currently, 700 people live here, about 170 families. And we will bring another 500 families here in the coming 6 to 8 months. We estimate that by April 1965, we will have reached the 5,000 mark. Workers and craftsmen, as well as a group of architects and engineers who reside here with their families, are currently working on building Arad.
Why did you come here?
Why did I come here? We couldn't find an apartment in Tel Aviv.
First, we went to a kibbutz. Not everything worked out the way we had imagined. But we were lucky. We came here directly from the kibbutz.
We just wanted to get ahead, and as quickly as possible. And we feel that Arad is the right place.
You see, people come here for a wide variety of reasons. Economic reasons play a role. For example, a plumber earns good money here and doesn't have to compete with other plumbers, like in Tel Aviv. Pioneer spirit also plays a certain role. People want to participate in building a new city. Israel's cultural life also plays a part.
In the student bar Bacchus in Jerusalem around midnight. Israel has also not remained untouched by American influence. From troop entertainment like this, from the Israeli army, our show business has developed.
Here in this exhibition room in Einhod, an artist's village near Haifa. The first signs are becoming visible of merging European and Oriental cultural heritage into something new and unique. Everywhere in our country, artists are searching for the forms of expression of a buried tradition in painting, in music, literature, expressive dance, and in theater. I spoke about this with the director of our state theater in Haifa, Yosef Milo.
Do you have a Hebrew theater or an Israeli theater? And if so, what does it look like?
Yes, we have a theater that is an Israeli theater because it is performed in Israel. We have a Hebrew theater because it is performed in the Hebrew language. However, we do not yet have an Israeli theater as far as the character of the theater is concerned.
Excerpt from a Romeo and Juliet performance at the Kameri Theater of Tel Aviv.
להיפגש אי פעם? ודאי, ודאי. ובאלה הצהרות נשיח בנחת רוח בימים יבוא. שלום לך.
A play by an Israeli author deals with the early years of the founding period.
הנה עכשיו אנחנו פה ואין לנו פרספקטיבה. ואחר כך שכבר סוף סוף תהיה פרספקטיבה, אנחנו לא נהיה פה. אתה חושב שזה בסדר?
The theater will only achieve its own distinct style, its own character when it has more tradition, when it has more experience. Because we are a very young country and the art of theater is a very young art form in Israel, it has actually only existed for 30 or 40 years. And that is, of course, a much, much too short a time to already possess its own distinct style, its own character in the arts.
A notable production of Mother Courage by Joseph Milo in the theater.
I would say that my intention, really, as artistic director, is to tackle social issues in particular. I believe that theater has far too important a task to fulfill in Haifa and in Israel in general, for it to remain merely an art for art's sake entity.
Theater is very popular in Israel. Its repertoire includes all the essential dramas of world literature. The contribution of Israeli playwrights is still very small. Israeli drama has not yet been born. This entrance leads to the General Executive of the Labor Union, the second strongest power in Israel. Almost all the employees of our country are organized here. This building in Tel Aviv symbolizes the power of the labor union, an institution whose executive elections have almost the same significance as the elections to parliament. Whoever holds the labor union in their hands today practically rules Israel. Or to put it another way, Israel cannot be governed without the consent of the labor union. This statue of the Hebrew worker was once more than just a symbol. Namely, at that time when the goal of the labor union was to protect the workforce from exploitative encroachments by companies. Today, the trade union itself has become the country's largest employer. All the country's produce reaches these retailers exclusively through the trade union. The wholesale trade of all agricultural products is the trade union's monopoly. Not the only monopoly. But to whom do the workers turn with their demands in a country where the union represents both employer and employee interests? Israel's industry is dependent on a foreign hinterland. This plywood factory would have to close its doors if the African wood it processes were to stop arriving one day. The export of this wood is as vital for Israel as the export of these polished diamonds. There are no rough diamonds in Israel, and polished diamonds are our country's second largest export item. We have sources of raw materials. Here in Timna, in King Solomon's former copper mines, copper is being extracted once again. But the pure copper content isn't very high, and the transport route to the customer is long. The mines can only operate profitably as long as the ore is shipped from the nearest port, and that is Eilat on the Red Sea. Between the Timna mines and any other Israeli port lie at least 300 kilometers of desert. This is the Dead Sea, Israel's largest supplier of minerals. For years, only as much phosphate was extracted here as our own agriculture required. More wasn't worth it because the port of Eilat was blocked. Since the Suez Crisis, it's open again, and now phosphate production is rising year by year. Today, Israel exports its phosphates from Africa to the Far East. A large industrial area is being developed here.
The question always arises, is it worth it? The Dead Sea is very far away. The nearest port is Eilat, just 4 kilometers away. A good road to Eilat was one of the key conditions for exporting raw materials profitably. These recordings, made a few years ago, show something of the tough struggle to overcome the Negev desert with a permanent road.
kilometer by kilometer, our port on the distant Red Sea moved closer to the center of our country, and through it, Africa and the Far East. And then the time had come. This road, so vital for us, was opened. Today is no longer at the end of the world for us. This is Israel's window to Africa and the Far East. Before the Suez Crisis, Eilat was a small fishing village. Today, Israel's second largest port is being built here on the Gulf of Eilat. Egypt can block this gulf. It was blocked until 1956. But since the Sinai War, this sea route has been open for Israel. A renewed blockage of the Gulf could trigger a war, because here in Eilat, one of our most vital lifelines ends. The future of the Israeli economy, and thus the existence of our country, lies in Africa and the Far East, not in Europe and not in the USA, even if the Israeli economy is still dependent on the West today. Haifa is our window to the West. Only the sea route remained for us after the Arab encirclement. There is not a single land route out of Israel. Without this day and night pulsing stream of imports and exports, Israel's existence today is most gravely endangered. But what would happen if one day the support from the West were to cease? The natural markets for these goods lie primarily in our neighboring country. But these markets are closed to us due to the state of war with the Arab countries. The students here in the cafeteria in Jerusalem do not worry their heads about these burning questions. They are not looking for answers. What do they care about tomorrow, as long as their bowls are still full today? But the content of these bowls is not manna raining down from heaven. The content of these bowls will, in the near future, depend on the answers that must be found to the political and economic questions. There are answers and there are ways. I didn't find them here in the cafeteria, but I found them, for example, with the head of our largest weekly magazine, Yuri Avneri, one of the co-founders of the Semitic movement.
As the name suggests, we start off from the idea that both we Israelis as well as the Arabs have a common fatherland, a shared homeland that we both belong to, a common culture that has developed over many generations, a common history that connects us through time, and a common future that we will build together. Such a revolutionary idea, certainly the most revolutionary idea that has been born in this country ever since the Zionist movement first began, This is a very, very fundamental revolution that we are witnessing, one that must ultimately prevail. It is important to understand that this revolution is first and foremost a spiritual revolution before it can ever be considered a political revolution.
This Arab man is an Israeli citizen. Israel is geographically in the Semitic region. It is not a branch of Europe. Just like the future of Arab children, our future also lies only in the Semitic region. The sooner we find a common path, the sooner this future will become the present. An Arab village near Jerusalem. It seems to be very peaceful, very idyllic. It is not that peaceful. The Arab problem in Israel is a problem that we have not yet overcome. 150,000 Arabs live in Israel, the largest minority. This is not a minority, says the government. That is a mistake. While these Arabs in Nazareth hold Israeli papers, and like all Israeli citizens, they go to the ballot box every 4 years. But even today, these people live under the control of the same military government that was formed for security reasons during the Israeli War of Independence. Our government does not place any trust in these people. How does the Arab citizen in Israel feel about this untenable situation? When I was a guest of Sheikh Yusuf, his son explained to me, it is hard for us to live under this constant mistrust. Certainly, a lot is being done for us by the Israeli government, and we acknowledge that too. These newsreel shots only show one side. The Fellahin receive modern agricultural machinery from the state. Arab villages are being electrified. But if I want to go to Tel Aviv, this boy in an Arab village told me, I always need a special permit. Roads are being built for them, and hospitals open. All of this is not enough. The military government must go. They must trust us. That is important for our youth. In the Knesset, in our parliament, this question has already triggered government crises. The majority of our people reject the continuation of the military government. But Ben-Gurion most resolutely opposed this demand during his many years in government. His reasoning: the Arab minority is a possible fifth column. For security reasons, the abolition of the military government would be irresponsible. Ben-Gurion is gone. The military government has remained. Its abolition can be our first step towards the realization of the Semitic idea. For years, unofficial groups have been preparing for this step.
We have had hundreds of debates and conversations abroad with Arabs of all Arab peoples, all Arab circles and classes. And we know that, in private moments, our ideas truly resonate with others, and in some way, they manage to find an echo, reflecting back to us what we feel. Our future lies with the young nations of this country. It lies in the realization that the existing governmental regime in Israel, a regime in the broadest sense, politically, spiritually, culturally, economically, and militarily, does not in any meaningful way fulfill the main task of the state. It is not up to the state's primary task. The primary task is undoubtedly to establish peace with the Arabs.
That was the statement by Uri Avneri. But whatever position one may take on this issue, one fact remains. This border is more than just a boundary. For 16 years, it has been a death strip. The symbol of a deadlocked policy of hatred that paralyzes current life on both sides. For Arab as well as Israeli youth, there is only one future across this border. Whether Arab youth is already aware of this fact today, I do not know. I only know that most of our youth will extend a hand at any time. 17 years ago, a train from Haifa to Beirut ran here for the last time. Since then, the line has been dead. The border runs right through the middle of the tunnel. If one day these rusted rails do not vibrate again under the rolling of trains, it may happen that the youth nations of the Middle East, striving for light, sink back into 1,000 years of darkness. For us, this darkness would mean the loss of a hard-won homeland. For us, there is no turning back. We must overcome this border of hatred through peace.